Good morning, all. We've got the early birds here. We're just going to give it sort of another minute or two for everybody else to join, and then we'll get cracking with the demo. So it shouldn't be too long, and then we'll be with you. Right, I think we've probably got most people in. Should we get cracking, Matt? And then any late joiners, I'm sure they'll catch up.
Absolutely. I think I was just going to say the same thing. Morning, everybody. Matt from NEUPC, and thank you for joining us for the latest of the Credit Safe webinars that we've run. This one will be focusing on the newly added to the contract bank verification tool and some of the advantages of being able to use that. And of course, we've got Ella as usual to talk us through that. So everybody's on mute for the time being, but if there are any burning questions if you want to put it in the chat function, I can share those with Ella. But if not, we can potentially open that up at the end if there's any more questions coming back in. But yep, until then, I shall go off camera so you can just focus on what Ella has to say, and we'll take it from there. So over to you, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. So I think at this point I've probably been on your screens a few times with various different sessions that we've run, and we've certainly made quite a lot of changes to your access to Credit Safe via NEUPC. And say the latest addition is bank verification, and specifically commercial bank verification. And this is something that has been requested from probably quite a lot of you that I can see on the screen right now. And it was going to be sort of an optional add-on. However, the interest was so high that Matt and the team at NEUPC decided that this is something that should be encased within the contract that you all have access to, which is what brings us here today. Now, I know that this session is in for an hour. However, with bank verification, it is a very quick tool. And so I'd imagine sort of within 15 or 20 minutes, depending on questions, we should be good, and I'll let you get on with your day. As Matt mentioned, if you do have any questions throughout the sort of little demo, please do feel free to pop them in the chat function, and I'll do my best to answer them sort of as and when they come in. Alternatively, if you have some specific questions that you want to put to myself or Matt, please do reach out to us via email after the call. So what I'm going to do is just quickly share my screen with you. And this is a platform that hopefully all of you are very familiar with at this point. So commercial bank verification is something that we started our journey with a good few years ago now. And with Credit Safe being one of only 4 commercial credit bureaus, it meant that we had access to the sharing pot of data provided by 10 major high street banks. There's only one high street bank that doesn't share into this data pot. And as they don't share, they don't get this information back either. Part of the scheme is to gain access, you've got to give access. So 10 of the main high street banks in the UK are now part of this sharing scheme, which you will have access to. And that should cover the vast majority of sort of small, mid-size and large businesses. Now, at the moment, I'd imagine most of you have sort of a process in place that looks something along the lines of you bring on a new supplier, you ask them to send over bank details on letter-headed paper with a signature from a director or person of influence. You then pick up the phone, pull them up and verify those details. That tends to be sort of the process across most institutions and businesses in the country. and it absolutely works. However, it can be quite time consuming, which is where digital bank verification comes in, and it's also a lot more secure. Now, it won't be something that you'll be able to verify 100% of bank details with. As I mentioned before, this is UK only, so it does need to be a UK bank account. And there will be some businesses that don't have their banking with the 10 providers that are part of the sharing scheme. There'll also be potentially newly incorporated businesses where their bank details haven't filtered through to this sort of pool of data yet. And then, of course, it'll be sort of reverting to the previous process. However, if we can sort of get between 70 and 85% of supplier bank details digitally verified, hopefully that will dramatically reduce the time that you're spending on boarding these new suppliers. So as I mentioned, this is now available for all of you as part and parcel of your membership with NAUPC and their counterparts. And bank verification is accessible through the same portal as you use for all of your credit checking needs. So you just go into this side little options menu, you hit bank verification, and then we're going to head into commercial bank verification. And it's going to take you to this screen. Now, this is where you're able to put either company name, a safe number, which is their unique credit safe ID number, or their company registration number in to perform the initial search. So we can find the business that we're looking to verify bank details for. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in credit safe and I'm going to hit search. Now, this will return results that look very similar to that of when you're looking to review a credit file. So you'll have the company names, company registration numbers, safe numbers and addresses as well, just to make sure that you are finding the correct business. Obviously, some companies will have maybe 4 companies in the UK sitting under the same group with very similar company names. It's just making sure that you're clicking on the right business. Otherwise, it may be that you're unable to carry out a full bank verification check. So I found the company, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the business name, and it's going to pull through the company details, just so again we can make sure that it is the business that we're looking to verify. So as you can see, we've got company details, incorporation date, VAT numbers, and so on. This is the sort of information that you find on the summary page of those credit reports. Now, you're then asked to give sort code and account number. It also gives you the option to add in an IBAN and VAT number. Now, these 2 fields at the bottom are optional. However, we can verify those details if you do wish. The VAT number can be found on the report just above anyway. But if they have given you any separate details, potentially for like a sister company that are supposedly for the bank account that's been provided, then you can always add it in there. But the only mandatory fields are the sort code and account number. Now, once you enter those details, so you add in those bits of information and you hit verify, you're then going to get 2 separate sets of results. So the first set of results right at the bottom of the screen are your validation results. Now, this is the part of the check that is a mathematic algorithm to make sure that the sort code and account number match up and it is a genuine bank account. And that's a genuine UK bank account. So this is saying, right, OK, we've checked the sort code, we've checked the account number. This bank account does exist and it is for a UK bank account. We then got the verification results. So this is the part that takes it one step further. So we're saying, right, we know that it's a real bank account, as we can see down here. But we're now making sure that this bank account belongs to the company in question. So again, if I get the results back up, we can see that it's confirming that the sort code and account number provided belong to the company, and then it'll give you the safe number that matches the business above. Now, there's a few different outputs that you can get outside of a sort of typical match. You may well get a match result on the validation. However, you don't get a match on the verification, and that's because, yes, OK, we can confirm it's a bank account. However, they may not have the data in the sharing pool at this time for us to call upon. And if that is the case, then the result will say that we can't access the data, so it's insufficient data. You may get a match down here, so the validation result comes back as a match. However, the verification comes back as no match. Now, if it says no match, we're saying, yes, we do have access to this data as part of the sharing pool. However, this bank account does not belong to this specific company. Now, more often than not, when we get those sorts of results, it's because they've provided you with bank details that belong to either a parent or sister company. And quite often they don't even think twice about doing it. But the whole point of this exercise is, we're running in-depth credit searches on these companies. Sometimes, some of you are running compliance searches, so you're checking the business, the ultimate beneficiaries, the directors, shareholders even, against international PEP sanctions, adverse media, law enforcement, financial regulator alerts. So you go to all of this trouble and then you potentially send in funds to a completely different business who you haven't screened whatsoever. So this is where the sort of two parts of CreditSafe are coming together and saying, yes, okay, we've done the screening on this specific business, and so this is the only company that we're actually happy to send any funds to. And if it is that they're giving you potentially a parent company's bank details or a sister company, then it's to go ahead and run a credit report and potentially a compliance report on that business as well, just to make sure that you're happy to be sending funds to that particular company. And, it may even come down to, is that your contracted company? And if so, if it's not the company that you're directly contracted with, it may be that some sort of admin changes need to be made on those contracts as well if you are paying a completely separate business. Are there any questions that have come through on that so far, Matt? I can't see the little chat function while I'm sharing.
No, there's nothing come through as of yet, Ella, so I'll keep you posted. If there is, I'll just pop my hand up or something. I'll just appear on screen, one or the other.
Fabulous. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. I'm sure that a lot of you on this call were some of our sort of initial guinea pigs that tested out the service and provided feedback. So I do hope that you have found it useful. The other thing that's also included is consumer bank verification or bank match. Now, I know that a lot of you have had conversations with prefer not to deal with sole traders. However, you end up dealing with them anyway, whether it's sort of fallen upon you or not. So if that is the case, you do have the option to verify individuals' bank details to make sure that if you are dealing with a sole trader, that you are paying monies into their own bank account and not the bank account of a friend, acquaintance, or somebody completely different. So again, you head into this bank verification section and you hit Consumer Bank Match. Now, at this point, you get presented with this screen. Now, with consumer bank matching, we do need more information than on the commercial side. So you make sure that the bank match icon is highlighted in blue. You'll then need to input first name, surname, date of birth, gender. You'll have to input their personal address. And you'll be able to carry out a search that way. You then add in sort code and account number, and in the same way as you would with the commercial check, you hit validate, and it will simply come back with the same results as you saw on the commercial side. So you'll have a validation pass or fail, and then you'll also have a verification pass or fail. And again, what that's saying is it a real bank account, and does this bank account belong to the individual? I think this is probably something that a lot of institutions that I've spoke to are trying to move away from as much as possible, dealing with individuals. However, if you do still have some that need payment, then I would, especially on the individuals, highly recommend that you do carry out a full bank match check before sending any funds to make sure that it is that individual's bank account that you're sending funds to, not a spouse, not a sibling, not a friend or an acquaintance, but it is indeed that individual's bank account. Okay, I think, have we got a question that's come in, Matt?
No, it's just for myself actually. So that last one, the consumer element, is that what we see in our day-to-day life in terms of the bank account? So if a company does some work for you and what have you, and they then say, oh, we need you to pay us, it then verifies that those funds are going to the right person, as in it's an actual company account versus a personal one?
Yes, so it's very, very similar. So you've probably all seen when making payments from, your own sort of apps on your phone. I know that I use NatWest, and if I'm transferring money to anybody else, it'll come up saying it's a match. And that's essentially what it's doing. So NatWest are part of the commercial bank sharing scheme, as well as the consumer side as well. So you will have the same access pool as they do as well. And we've just seen, I think a question's just come in.
Indeed, yeah. I can read it out if it's easier, if you've got several screens open, Ella. That's
yeah, that would be great if you could, Matt.
yeah, smashing. There's two questions. Can we see an example of one which doesn't match? And is there a limit on the number of checks we can do? Now, I can take the second part of that one. As it stands at the moment, we've negotiated a number of verifications as part of the contract, although until we've started using it in anger, we're not going to know how to allocate those. So as it stands at the moment, there is a certain pot of them. It's substantial. There's plenty for everybody to be using at the moment, but equally it's just a case of it isn't infinite. So it's not something that you can just use ad nauseum kind of thing. There is a cap on it. So if you want to, I'll be in touch with that in terms of the details of that, so people are fully aware of what their allowances are, but it is available to be using as of now. So the first part for you, Ella, was an example of one that doesn't match.
Yes, so let me share my screen with you. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is literally type in some random sort of details in here, and then we can pop in some there, and then I'm going to hit verify. And this is sort of a good example of, okay, so the sort code and account number comes back as no match. So you'll say, right, this is the algorithm that's just checking that it's a real bank account. So this bank account does not exist. And then we've got the verification result. As you'd imagine, it's coming back as no match because it doesn't match this particular company. What I would say is, if we are able to verify that it's a real bank account, which we can do on every single UK bank account, so we can run this validation part on every single UK bank account, and it comes back with insufficient data, that's saying we're not at that point saying that, okay, this bank account doesn't belong to the company. We're specifically saying that this is a bank that we do not have information in as part of this sharing scheme. So in that case, then it'd be reverting to the previous or sort of backup method. So we will differentiate between insufficient data or no match, and it will give you sort of a little bit of a breakdown next to it as well. So hopefully that answers your question. I think there was another one that popped in as well.
Just off the back of that one, Ella, as well, is, do we have a list of the banks who are part of the scheme? So ultimately, I know that you said there is one that isn't. So if you'd rather not name who isn't, can we have a list of who is?
Yes, no, we can absolutely. So the only bank that's major bank that's not part of this scheme is ESME, I believe. So I will send over a full list of the 10 banks that are part of this sharing scheme. That's only going to increase as well. Say CreditSafe, this isn't CreditSafe data. It's just that as we are a commercial credit bureau, we have access to that pot of data. So that is very reliant on banks not having technical issues and making sure that they're sharing their data within a timely manner. They do have quite strict KPIs for sharing their data in a timely manner as well for new bank accounts that have been set up and keeping the information up to date. But it is outside of our control. We can just give you access to that data pool.
Sure. Another one that's come in saying that there was previously a limit on the number of free searches that could be done. I'm not sure if that relates purely to bank verification or if it's searches more generally, but in either case, they're not unlimited to the point where the verification, certainly there is a cap on it, after which time there'd be a need to then have a further financial commercial discussion with yourselves to increase those. But in terms of some of the day-to-day searches that you do on companies, they're to all intents and purposes, depending on what they are. I mean, there's a full list of what's available to that on the contract, so I can send that over to you, John, after this. And if anybody wishes to access it, I believe also it's on HE contracts. So, but I will check that, and so everybody can access it as they need. But it's fully detailed on there.
Oh, fab. Yeah, bank verification. So
bank verifications, yes, there is a limit. Although, as I say, it's a fairly decent chunk that we have. So yeah, it's not necessarily open season, but you shouldn't have to be watching every single one either. So that should be a good balance for the time being, at least. Another one that we had was what are the fields on the sole tracker checker are mandatory? So for the sole trader.
Yeah, so when checking individuals' bank details, mandatory fields are first name, last name, gender as per their passport or driving license. So it's whatever is currently listed on that. We will then need their residential property address, sort code and account number. So it's sort of typical information that you'd need to carry out, say, an anti-money laundering check. That's the information that we would need. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I think there's a few more popping in now as well.
Yeah, no worries. The next one down was that do we have to request access from CreditSafe to the consumer bank match before we can use it?
We just need T's and C's accepted, so we can just push those through on our side and then we'll be good to go. It's just because being consumer data, there's sort of tighter restrictions on access. So we're sort of holding off until we've been able to have a bit more of a conversation around the difference between the two. Because the last thing that we want is everybody putting through information on directors on sole on the consumer bank match rather than putting them through commercial bank verification. So those consumer ones should be few and far between.
Sure, no worries. And there was a question that's saying that people are trying to collect the bank details, which is proving difficult. Is there any facility to obtain bank details for a company if you do not have them? So I'm over to you.
Yeah, no. So no is the short answer to that. We've had well, I personally have so many clients that come to me almost on a weekly basis saying, here's a list of all the companies that we work with. Please, can you give me sort code and account numbers for all of them? We cannot give you that data that way round. We can only verify if the data that you hold is correct or not. So it'd be great if we could give you that information, and we do have it on file, but unfortunately we cannot give out bank details. We can only verify if the ones that you already have are correct or not. But I'd imagine if they want paying, then they should really be giving you bank details in a timely manner.
Indeed.
But I know that it's not always the case. And I think Mary's popped on there. So sole traders, yes, if you are running a consumer bank check, then you do need date of birth of the individual that you're checking against. But obviously you don't need any of that information if you're checking a commercial bank account.
Dope.
I think we've pretty much covered off all questions there. If anybody does have any questions after this, please do pop in the chat. Again, it will stay live. So if there's any questions once you're off the call that sort of pop into your mind, please do pop them in the chat and myself or Matt can get back to you. It's usually a little bit easier than a load of emails coming in all at once, as the chat facility does stay open. But is there anything else that you wanted to add to that, Matt?
There wasn't anything from my point of view. I think you've covered everything pretty succinctly there. I mean, as you said, this one will be a little shorter than some of the other ones just because of this is a very specific area that we're covering. But it was important to make sure that people were supported with it when there's something new, because you've just taught me through how to do it and I didn't know either. So that's exactly what we need, just that steer half the time to find what we need. Yeah, but ultimately, other than that, just re-echoing what Ella said, if there's any questions for us following that, do let us know, and we shall stay in touch, of course. But the session's been recorded, so if you want to share with any colleagues or anybody who happens to be on leave, I realise it's in the middle of school holiday season and what have you, so it will be there for people to be able to to access afterwards as they wish.
So any questions that anyone has, like I said, please do pop them in the chat or ping us an email, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. But you should find that the facility will be fully open to you all now on the commercial side, and as soon as the T's and C's just get access within the portal for the consumer.
Lovely. Well, thank you all for attending, and thank you ever so much for your time as usual, Ella. Much appreciated. And yeah, well, I'm sure we'll all rejoin in a future one of these webinars at a future date. So speak again soon.
Speak
Enjoy
soon.
the rest of your day, guys. Take care. Bye bye.